Welcome back to Check It Out. Miss Elaine and I are here today with our very special guest. This is Michael Ayoob. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Yes, he is. And Michael is an author and an author of a first book. Am I correct on that too?
Yes.
All right. And we're very pleased that Michael agreed to come and be on our show with us today to talk a little bit about his book. And I will tell you right off the bat, I did not get a chance to read the book at all, but I do know a couple things. It is a mystery, right?
Yes.
And it is set in Pittsburgh.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's right away. That should make it very attractive to a lot of our library patrons for sure, because mysteries are very popular, and anything about Pittsburgh is very popular. And also, the book is an award winner. So, and maybe you could tell us what this award is about.
Yes. Well, the award is the St. Martin's Press / Minotaur Books Best First Private Eye Novel contest, and that's also how the book sort of ended up becoming published. Was it won this contest. I sort of found out about the contest through luck. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the typical channel. Getting this book published wasn't the typical way I think most writers do it. Like, the typical way most writers do it is to find an agent, and the agent then goes and sends a manuscript out to a lot of publishers, editors, everything else. I sent it, I tried to do that for years.
I was going to say, do you have an agent?
No,
okay.
I don't. I still don't have an agent. It wasn't for lack of trying. I tried for many years and didn't get anywhere, and went back and rewrote the book. So I started writing this book in 2001. Okay. Really worked on it from 2001 to 2004. Tried to sell it, couldn't sell it. Put it aside for a few years. Came back to it in 2007, worked on it from 2007 to 2009. And somewhere around 2009, I found out about this contest with St. Martin's Press. And I sent it to the contest, won the contest. And the prize for winning the contest was a one-book contract. Yeah.
So this is for an unpublished novel then. The contest is for unpublished books. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
And is it also for a first book, a first novel?
Yes.
Okay.
You cannot, it's an unpublished book, and I believe you cannot have had any other big publishing credits.
Well, that's a great opportunity then for a writer who is not published then to kind of get a foot in the door, right?
Yeah, it worked for me.
It was very successful.
And this is something that is offered yearly? Is it an annual contest?
Yes.
Do you know if they...
Yes, it is. One of the catches, though, to it is that they don't necessarily pick a winner every year. They didn't pick one for 2010. See, they picked one.
That's interesting. So if they don't find that any entries are worthy, they won't award anyone.
Yeah.
Now that is interesting to me. You would think, with the number of people that are interested in writing and getting books published, that there would always be something worthy of an award, but apparently not.
Yeah, you would think. You would think just through sheer volume of manuscripts coming in that there'd be one. That
do they have
would pick
specific criteria that they're looking for in their entries? In the stories?
Yeah, and it's it has to be it's a private eye novel, and the way they define private eye, if I remember correctly, was it has to be a character who's agreeing to solve some sort of mystery for money, but also this character is not a law enforcement person, not a government agent. Okay. Is just a random person. Okay. Is how they define private eye. In my book,
why don't you tell the viewers, give a little bit of what the storyline is about.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because my book is a really, I think, liberal definition of a private eye novel.
I've read that in one of the reviews. They did. That's the way they described it.
Yeah, it's not the typical thing, I guess. What happens with my book is it begins. The main character is this guy named Dexter Bolchek, and it starts with him in high school, and he's a hockey goalie. And he's this phenomenal, hockey goalie who came out of nowhere in high school. And it's described later on, it's explained how he discovered his gift and everything. But the first chapter of the book is him blowing the big game. I don't think I'm giving too much away by saying that. Mm-hmm. And after he blows the big game, he is abducted by these disturbed individuals. And the book picks up 8 years later, and we know something horrible has happened to him. We know he's traumatized. We don't know exactly what these guys did to him. But we pick up with him 8 years later, and he's sort of just going through life. And is sitting at a fast food restaurant on his lunch break. He's working a dead-end warehouse job at the time. And this drunk comes up to him, this old, smelly, gross drunk, just comes up to him and starts talking to him. And he doesn't really want to have anything to do with this guy until the guy starts throwing money at him. And eventually he cozies up to the guy then. And this guy's named Lou, this character. And Lou, as they get to know each other a little better, basically offers a drawer full of cash to Dexter for Dexter to find Mercy Carnahan, who was Lou's lost love. She disappeared 50 years ago. She was a film noir, femme fatale Hollywood actress who vanished. And she's Lou's lost love. And Lou is sick and sort of incapacitated, and so he gives this mission basically to Dexter. So there you go. I mean, there's a mystery. Find Mercy Carnahan, where this character is doing it for money. And this character clearly isn't law enforcement, government agent of any type. So that's how I looked at what I'd written, and I looked at this contest and said, okay, this kind of fits.
This fits.
We'll see what happens,
That's
Obviously, it was a good fit. It was a good match. One of the things I read about the book yesterday was that you did not start. You are a native Pittsburgher. This is where you were born and raised, right?
Yes.
But you did not start writing the book here in Pittsburgh. Where were you when you started writing the book?
I was living in New York at the time. I was living in New York for about 3 years. I was up there from 2001 to 2004. I was getting my master's in fiction at Columbia at the time. So I went to CMU here and worked for a few years after that, and then was accepted to Columbia for their master's program. So I was up there and in New York, and really kind of sweating over what to do, like what to write, because I'd spent years in Pittsburgh writing another novel, which was a, sensitive coming-of-age story, which I worked on for many, many years before I finally just had to abandon. And so I'm in New York, and I have to write, I had to write, I forget what the thesis requirement was, but I knew while I was up there, our goal was to write a book, just write a new book, start over, do something different. So I sat down, started writing this, and I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to write a private eye book or a mystery book. I sat down just thinking, okay, I need to write something that has a lot more plot and action than the last thing I wrote had. So that's how I started with this, and it just sort of turned into this mystery.
Now, I also read that you moved back to Pittsburgh, and then you rewrote the book. Is that correct? Is that the way you would describe the process, that you had a major rewriting of the book once you came back to Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
What was the reason for the rewriting because the book is set in Pittsburgh? Did the moving back to and actually being physically here kind of inspire you in some way?
It did. There were a few things that happened with this. How this happened, like how the coming back and everything influenced things. What happened was, I was up there, and when the time I was working on it up there, a few big things were different. One, it was in third person. So when I wrote the book is now in first person. And so I wrote it as a more, I guess, cinematic, maybe more just we're watching this character go through everything he's going through and doing. And I had a classmate up there who read it and said, this is begging to be in first person. You really need to change this up. And, everything about this is, we need to get into this main characters. We need to be told this story through him. And I didn't want to hear it. Because it, going back and rewriting an entire book from third person to first person is was too much work. I didn't want to hear it. So I just didn't want to hear it and just plowed onward, tried to sell it for years, couldn't sell it. Moved back to Pittsburgh. After being in New York for a couple years, I realized pretty soon with the student loans I had from Columbia, I couldn't afford to live there. Just, it wasn't going to happen. There wasn't 1, 2, 3, or 4 jobs I could have had at the same time that could have kept me up there. So it didn't help that I wasn't having any luck finding one. So I moved back to Pittsburgh, and it was a combination of thinking about what my classmates said and coming back here that eventually got me to go back to it again and try it again. And so when I came back here, I rewrote it into first person. It took a couple years to sort of come around and admit my classmate was right. Her name was Kalisha Brown, by the way. I should totally give her credit for this. I think in other interviews I've talked about this and never said her name. So I came back here, and it was a good combination of the butt kicking, of coming back here at age 29 and having pretty much failed to trying to sell this book, and not having a job, having no prospects, moving back in with my parents, and really struggling. And then her Kalisha's advice in the back of my head, and I just said, okay, well, what do I have to lose at this point? So I sat down and just totally rewrote the book and figured I'll give it one more chance.
That's great, because that does take a lot of determination. You had to be discouraged, because you said, originally you started in 01 to 04.
Yeah.
Took a break, and then pretty much had to start all over again. So what was, what was your inspiration, or how did you offset that feeling of discouragement?
Being stubborn, I think, is probably one thing. A gluttony, being glutton for punishment, maybe. I mean, I think some of it.
No, that's just great. I mean, I just admire your determination, because that is very, very difficult thing to do, and the fact that you worked on it for so many years and stuck with it, I think, is very admirable.
Oh, well, thanks a lot.
Sure.
Thanks. I think there's something about this book. I mean, maybe too, it was having written that first book and worked on that for so long, and just finally just having to let it go. I think maybe with this book, there was sort of, in my mind, something saying, like, I can't let this one go.
Do that again,
like,
right.
this one,
Right.
I think I drew a line here in a way and said, this book is good, and this is the best I can do. And it's like, if I can't make this one work,
Good.
then, I'm just not going to write.
Right.
And, you can probably find some of my friends who had to listen to me talk about this for hours, just, throwing my hands up saying, that's it, I'm done,
Right.
done. And them saying, no, you're not.
Now,
Get back to work.
The advice of this one friend that you met in New York, this old classmate, did you have a lot of other friends read it too? Were you a part of critique groups or writers group? Because I know a lot of authors give that advice, that you want to join a writers group. You want to get it critiqued by as many people as you can.
At school we had workshops, So I mean, I did have sort of that experience at school, both at CMU and at Columbia. So part of the curriculum at each of these programs was the workshop. And
Right.
outside of the workshop, I didn't really have a writers group. I mean, I had, supportive friends who were kind enough to read various drafts of this as I went along. But after school, the school experience, I kind of felt like, no, I felt in a way as if, like, okay, I've paid the dues of sitting in a
Right.
room with, because they weren't always friendly or supportive or constructive.
No, I'm sure.
Workshops can be pretty brutal and
Yeah.
nasty, and there are all these, like, petty, dislikes and rivalries and jealousies and competitions that brew up to
imagine.
it. So that experience, I kind of am in no hurry to get into something
Yes.
like that again.
Understandably.
A lot of the reviewers commented on the fact that, or they felt that you were able really to capture the essence of Pittsburgh in your book. The location is an important part of the story. So what is it about Pittsburgh? I ask this question because I am not a native Pittsburgher. I've been here longer than, I grew up in New Jersey, and I've been here longer than I was in New Jersey. But what is it about Pittsburgh that makes it so a place that has so much appeal, had so much appeal for you as a writer?
That's a really great question. I think, some of it was, there are a couple things. I think one of the things was, it's what I know, it's home.
They always say you should write about what you know, right?
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of that there. I mean, it's, I feel as if, I've just knowing this place as well as I do, and just having grown up here, I can see the good and the bad and everything, and just try to give an honest depiction is what I was hoping to do. I don't know if how people will feel about it, but as you said, I mean, some of the reviews have been pretty good. What is it about Pittsburgh? I think, well, I mean, there are a few things. You find some really weird attitudes around the country that are weird to me, at least,
Yes,
from being here.
no, I agree with you.
To me, I mean, I think it's, on one hand, it is really remarkable how well Pittsburgh is doing for being a steel town. After the collapse of the steel industry.